Hello snacks, welcome back. We've got a bunch of updates and stories concluded from a few years ago. Let's get started. Starting with the most recent collection that began 2 months ago. I threw my pregnant girlfriend out because she refuses to pay rent on her share of the bills. Long story short, my girlfriend and I have been living together for around 10 months. When she first moved in, she insisted on paying rent and I was reluctant to charge her if it didn't work out, but she forced it and paid a month. But then I found out she's struggling for money, unable to pay for things, is in a lot of debt and lives month to month. She agreed with me that she'd start when she clears the debt. Now fast forward to Christmas, I found out she's been stealing my clothes to give to her family as gifts. Another post on here. She lied for 2 weeks, blaming me until I showed her footage of her taking the things from the camera in the living room to watch the dog when I'm out. And yeah, that's this post from 4 months ago. At the time titled that he left his pregnant girlfriend, but clearly that didn't commit. To highlight the beautiful gaslighting she was doing at the time, Opie had wrongly looked through her Facebook Messenger, noticing that she was taking pictures of his trainers, asking her mom if her brothers will fit them because I don't like it. I do like them, I just haven't had a chance to wear them. Her reply was, "I'll wrap them up then." And of course, when confronting her about it, she would say that no. Her mother was asking what trainers OP wore to buy him some. Ultimately, despite all of OP's evidence, she's adamant and she hasn't stolen and that I'm pathetic and she'll show me proof, but not when I ask for it and in her own time. Ultimately threatening to abort the child and saying that OP has caused her stress when she's pregnant. So already from 4 months ago, they are sounding like a very healthy dynamic of a relationship. So 2 months after her allegedly being kicked out, what's he found out now? I later then discovered through letters and texts I've seen appear on her phone that she's been doing nothing to pay any of her debt off. So I confront her. She tells me and shows me messages that her mother and sisters constantly guilt trip her into giving them money and have for years. They'll message her on payday asking for it and she feels bad saying no. Despite none of them ever paying it back, her mum alone owes her over £6,000. She has taken out a lot of loans for her family and they leave her with the debt and don't pay it back. Now luckily her credit is now at the point where nobody will loan to her, but she still tries and does it for them. I also found out I went through her finances. Yes, I shouldn't have, but something wasn't adding up and I was being lied to. That in the space of 20 minutes, she spent £300 on gambling sites. All during this time, she isn't paying a penny towards rent, bills, or anything. She'll occasionally buy food, shopping, or trips out to Starbucks. I tell her enough is enough, and she needs to start paying her way. If she can give handouts to her family and gamble, she can pay for where she lives, and she's taken me for a ride when she should have been saving and clearing debts. I make roughly 5 times what she does. So what's that? $50? But I've been fair in that the bills are split proportionally to income. She'll earn £1,400 per month and pay $600, which includes rent and her share of the bills. I take on the rest, which is substantially more, but I believe it's not fair to take more. On the 1st of this month, she tells me she can't pay rent. She says she's paid out too much on our trips to Starbucks, food shopping, and I'll get it when I get it, but she doesn't understand why I need it this month when she's lived for free the past 9 months anyway. I've asked her to explain where her money has exactly gone, but she tells me I'm controlling and it's none of my business. In fairness, she will pay when we go food shopping, but rarely in comparison to me. So I've kicked her out as of yesterday and told her she needs to find somewhere else to live. She is, however, pregnant and she's using that card as a way to guilt trip me and make out that I've thrown her out and my child onto the streets. But in my opinion, she is taking me for a ride and prioritizing her family that is using her over her own family she started. Like, what's the solution here to getting her to see she's not treating me fairly? Yeah, the situation of the pregnancy does not really help because as much of a snake she's being, there's another person involved in this now. Regardless if she's aware of that or not and is taking advantage of that, it's still a fact. You have a child you have to consider in all this. While many are quick to say that you should have cut that cord a long time ago, hindsight is 2020. Kind of useless at this point. So what do you think though? Do you think he should call her bluffs whenever she threatens abortion? Do you think that maybe in the long run for humanity in general, maybe these sort of people shouldn't really be having kids? Or do you think this is more of a wake-up call for both of them to, mature up? Stop wasting your time on tantrums about fairness in the real world, while she also should learn to be bloody mature and start learning how to budget. So we come to a month later. Considering this man's history of taking her back the moment he kicks her out, let's see how things have progressed. I sat her down and gave her an ultimatum early last week. I explained to her that we are a family and became a family when she decided to have a baby with me. I told her if we're going to stay together, she's going to have to be a lot more open, contribute, and no more taking on debt she can't afford, which brings it to my door when she can't pay. I also told her I want to see her bank statements because I suspect she has a gambling problem and is in some serious debt. She agreed to all of this and committed to showing me the bank statements when I ask, and says going forward, she'll pay towards bills. Now, I believe she's turned a corner and is starting to getting along with her better, and now she moves back in. But as I was sat next to her phone last night, when she went to grab a drink, her phone lit up with a text message. It read,
"Loan accepted by X-Lender. Click here to accept."
I immediately called her out and she starts crying, telling me she has no money left again for the month and she's had to resort to payday loans for some money. I tell her she should have come to me and tell her I explicitly said no more loans. Conveniently, she also tells me she won't be able to afford to pay towards bills again. She works full-time and brings home around $1,400 to $1,200 a month, depending on hours, but a lot of the time she phones sick and gets sick pay, which is a lot less. I asked to see her bank statements and she refuses, telling me I'm being controlling by asking when she's told me and I don't need to see them. That's the last straw for me. Dude, how many straws do you have? At this point, you have a hay bale. I'm almost certain she's been giving it away at this point again, or gambling. I gave her a scenario. Your baby is starving and needs food and there's none in the house. What are you going to do? She replies,
"You'll have to pay."
"Oh, that's fine. I'll happily support my son," I tell her, because the mother is clearly a deadbeat. So I asked to see her Facebook Messenger to see if her family had been hitting her up for free money again, and conveniently, all of the family members that borrow from her have the chats cleared. She says she deletes them to be tidy, yet mine's still there. I told her this isn't going to work, and she tells me I'm a controlling freak, basically, and she agrees, and I've not heard from her since. Moral of the story is, she's too damaged from her upbringing, I'm guessing, and some people you just can't change. She still messages me asking how I am, but I'm just ignoring her except from anything baby related. I need to move on. Now, I know a lot of people questioned whether she's pregnant, how stupid I was to get her pregnant. I agree. And if it's mine, I've been to every scan, so I know she's pregnant. As for if it's mine, I've never suspected cheating, but she's a serial liar, so I will be forcing a DNA test through the courts. I posted on a couple of different subs to make sure I wasn't getting biased opinions. The above story is 100% true. I wish it wasn't, believe me. But my focus is now getting as far away as possible from her for my own sake. Yeah, I like to be hopeful that people can change when confronted with interventions of sort, but yeah, for some of us, it's just inbuilt instinctual behavior. And you got this person saying that their dad stole their college money twice. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if this woman ends up stealing from her own child too. And ironically, child support will probably be a lot cheaper in the long run than supporting her habits. It sucks you'll see your child less though, I can imagine. Some other unsurprising but equally dark stories. I dated someone like this when I was 18. His entire family was broke, drowning in gambling debts and various addictions. They'd all hit each other up for cash to pay off whatever was the most immediate crisis, drugs or gambling. Things like, "Oh, if you throw me $200, I'll go to the casino and make $2K and then I'll pay you back $400 and buy you XYZ. Of course, it never worked out. They didn't care. If I said, "We literally need your half of rent. Please don't loan your mom anything," they would both scream and cry about abandoning family. But folks, 2 days ago, there is the final update. Yep, he's found another straw and he's decided to hold on to that one too. And honestly, at this point, the sneaky snakeful behavior, it's all on him. It really is at this point. So after a couple of weeks of learning that she was sleeping around on family members or friends' sofas, I allowed her back into the house, given that she is pregnant. That was around a month ago. Out of concern for the baby, really, given she's now 8 months pregnant. Stupid on my part, and I'm now going to explain why I regret it. So I've recently moved house. It was a couple of months ago, and she was involved in the packaging and unpacking whilst I was out. Mainly unpacking. I had a pretty large stack of cash in the drawer of a cabinet in the living room, around 400 to 500 pounds. This was a Christmas gift from my parents. During this time, I also sold a lot of old furniture, including a sofa, which she begged and begged for me to sell it to her mother. I begrudgingly accepted this. She told me her mother had asked to borrow the money from her repeatedly, to buy it from me, and asked if she could pay a couple of weeks after she took it. Well, no biggie, that's fine, I tell her. So her mother collects the sofa, giving me 100 pounds cash initially, and tells me the rest will be with me in a week. A week comes around, and she tells me it'll be next month, but she's not happy as it's collapsed, and I need to come take a look. But I tell her it was fine. She collected it, and I'm not taking a look. But basically, if you don't want it, I'll collect it and sell it to someone who wants to pay. So she tells me I'm not welcome in their house. My girlfriend, but now ex, told her there was nothing wrong with the sofa at all when it was collected, and her mother tells her she's also not welcome. So my ex then flips it onto me, telling me I'm controlling and she didn't need to get involved to the fallout with her family. I mean, I didn't make her, but I told her it showed where her priorities lie when she's defending them and not wanting to get involved over them screwing me over. It was left at that. So mother wants to buy a sofa off OP. OP accepts. Mother comes, collects it herself so she can see the quality it's in, gives him a quarter of the payment, promising more. Over a month later, still hasn't fully paid back, and is complaining the couch sucks now. The moment he says, okay, I'll come take it off you and sell it to someone else, she bans him from the house and also the girlfriend because the girlfriend dared to agree with her partner. And apparently, her decision to do that is all OP's fault. What a beautiful display of mental gymnastics. 10 out of 10. Oh, but it gets even more heinous because turns out mommy absolutely had the money to pay. So back to the money, I went to see where the money went and searched the entire house. It's not there, but everything that was unpacked was there. Even pointless stuff like a blown light bulb that was packed and unpacked. I asked her, my ex, where the money is, and she immediately gets defensive. Tells me, it's somewhere. And immediately I think, this is all the same answers as last time. It then dawned on me that the money I was gifted, it was in £10 notes. And the money I was part paid for my sofa also was in £10 notes. So my suspicion is my girlfriend stolen my money for her mother to hand to me to be paid. I basically paid myself minus what had been taken. I confronted her and she replied,
Oh, even if I did admit to it, try and sort things. I don't care about you anymore anyway, so I don't need to.
So it probably makes sense why she was trying to take a loan out roughly the same time she would have taken the money. She was trying to cover herself. So yeah, there we have it. I let her stop for a while and this is where it's landed me. Her stealing again. Whilst I have no solid proof whatsoever, it could only be her that took it, and if everything else got unpacked, then she's certainly taken it. So she's now threatening to out me to people for who I really am. A victim of theft, I guess? And she'll tell everyone how awful I am and not to bother contacting her. So I've thrown her back out again for the very last time, and I'm just relieved. Not sad at all. Whilst I have no proof of her reaction is all the proof I need. Now I'm forcing a DNA test at birth and will fight to make sure no child of mine is brought up in a family like hers. She is poison. People like her don't change, they just take more. So hooray! Third update's the charm, I suppose. Only took months of the constant same repetitive behavior of thieving and disrespecting you and your relationship with her for you to realize that. Good on you! You know, slow and steady wins the race, I suppose. That said, I still have to wonder about the circumstances with, you know, the child now being involved in all this. But that also said, it does seem like he's making an effort to ensure the child will be taken well care of if it is actually his and if she goes ahead with the pregnancy. Either way, all the best to this man and we'll move on. And now for a two-parter where people often say that communication is the best solution to a relationship, but sometimes, yeah, anonymous posting could actually be better. Am I the a-hole for sabotaging my husband's relationships? In my country, arranged marriages are very common, and this is how I, 24 female, got married with Jason, 24 male. Now note that I said arranged marriages, not forced marriages. An arranged marriage is basically when your family plays matchmaker with you and someone else, but it isn't forced. It's important to say I never wanted to get married and am for sure placed somewhere in the ace spectrum because intimacy Intimacy was never something important to me, but I knew Jason since we were kids and he was always nice to me, so I accepted to spend some time with him and see where it would go. Well, turns out Jason and I had a lot in common. Our country is pretty religious, but neither of us saw that much importance in religion and just pretended to our families to not cause problems. We are both more on the introvert side and don't like crowds or big family reunions. When I told him about my feelings about intimacy and sexuality, he was sweet and understanding. We ended up becoming good friends, and it was obvious the idea of marrying each other seemed appealing for us. So we got married 2 years ago. We made a deal to be basically good friends who were married, to not sleep together and sleep in different rooms. He was allowed to sleep with whoever he wanted since he was not getting it from me. Everything was perfectly fine. Our families, however, really started to pressure us to have children this last year. Since this was so important to them, we agreed to, well, try. But first, I asked him to make an STI exam since he had this fair share of casual intimacy, and even though he reassured me he always used protection, I wouldn't feel safe otherwise. After the exam, he showed he was clean. We had our first time together, and it was great. Way better than I could ever imagine. After that, he noticed I liked it and asked if that sort of thing was in the equation of our relationship now. I said yes. This was a few months ago, and since then, we've been having it on pretty regularly. But we also started to spend more time together outside of that, and I think my feelings of friendship for Jason are starting to change. Not only that, but I started to feel jealous of his casual relationships, especially his affair with this Anna girl who's in her 20s, who he's been seeing regularly for the past month. I'm scared he starts to fall in love with her because he always speaks highly of her and he seems to like her. So I kinda started to sabotage his dates with her and other girls. In a way, I pretend to have headaches, to feel sick or sad or any other excuse so he has to stay with me instead of go see them. I know it's childish and maybe I should just talk to him about it, but I'm so scared he doesn't feel the same and things get weird between us. I mean, it's not like we can escape each other. So am I the a-hole? It is just such an interesting, unique situation, but also freaking fairy tale adorable too. What's interesting though is that the verdict for it was Opie was the a-hole, which is interesting because technically it's the other partner who's getting to sleep around without any consequences, but I guess it also makes sense because Opie is communicating in a very childish manner. Very, I guess, manipulative in a sense, rather than just being direct about it. I mean, the fact that he's been having casual relationships all this time, and the moment he gets to sleep with you, he's actually wanting to do it with you regularly. To be getting that from a guy who has an open relationship option, that's a pretty damn big compliment. Like, it's not just theoretical, it is literal. He would literally enjoy sleeping with you than sleeping with someone else. So with all the comments thoroughly railing the OP with an OP verdict to the point she mistakes them for her husband, this is actually all posted on Tumblr, by the way, she comes back with an update. The responses here were very enlightening, although some of you should probably learn how to be kinder to others. Not my fight to have, anyway, but I listened to your advice and I talked to Jason yesterday. It went well. It went great. It really made me wonder why I thought this wasn't an option. He actually knew I was trying to sabotage his dates, but it didn't matter that much since he was thinking about stopping with them anyway. In fact, he told me he already told the women he was seeing that he wanted to stop going out with them around 2 weeks ago. I apologized anyway, but he thought it was cute and said I'm a terrible liar. I asked why he didn't talk about it either. He said he felt I needed some time to reach the point I would feel ready for this conversation. Most important, he said he always loved me, that he accepted our early dynamic because he knew it would be hard for me to find someone who would understand and respect my relationship with intimacy in our culture. And he's right. I don't think people even know what an asexual or a demisexual person is here, and I think people who would mostly see it as some sort of mental illness or deviation. So he wanted to at least be able to give me protection and companionship on my own terms. He was over the moon that I am in love with him too, but he assured me that it would also be fine for him if it never happened, and I believe him. I also showed him this post and he found it really funny that I was able to open up to a bunch of strangers before talking to him. It was a little embarrassing, but I wanted to be completely honest with him. Also, answering the people who asked if we wanted to have children or if we were only doing this because of our family's pressure, we talked about it before starting to have an intimate relationship, and yes, we want to have children. Now that everything is out in the open, we're even more excited for that. So So thank you for the advice anyway. Some of you were harsh, but I needed a wake-up call, I guess. So understandably, people use this as a great example that, hey, a reminder to adults in relationships that you need to talk to each other. It would solve like 90% of the relationship problems posted on Reddit. Others going on, they're like, yeah, why is it so difficult for people to communicate with one another? Like, bro, the lovers have to talk to one another. Seriously, if you can't have the time to communicate or try, why are you even married or in a relationship at this point? But I have to more strongly agree with this perspective of it all, just the human psychology behind it. So the issue is that communication is not consequence-free. People post anonymously to Reddit to get a feel for what the possible consequences could be before they commit to communicating. Yeah, opening up to strangers is much easier than talking to people in real life. The worst you can get online is harsh comments you can delete. In real life, you have to deal at worst with rejection and personal hate from someone you value. Like, yeah, man, I personally am all for people posting things anonymously just to get a feel for the water, you know? I mean, let's be real. Even before the day and age of social media taking over everyone's lives and internet ruining our ability to actually communicate with interesting linguistics of language, we always did suck at properly conveying how we feel or how to explain our situation without coming across as an a-hole because someone already has a preconceived idea as to what we're saying or what we're meaning behind it, because they themselves are also fallible, faulty people. If you have any sort of bias or belief in something, you are flawed. You are capable of doing this sort of, misinterpretation or miscommunication yourself. It's just human nature. But do let me know what you think. I'm just personally in that side of the fence where, hell yeah, ramble anonymously online. At least if you intend for people to actually give you feedback on it. If you just want to double down, well, no, you're wasting everyone's time. And there is no greater example of double downing and facing the consequences of that than this story. Am I the a-hole for pursuing the nanny? I'm 43 male. I've been pursuing a relationship with my friend's nanny. He's in finance, she's a doctor, so they needed an extra pair of hands to look after their 6-month-old. About 2 months ago, they found Ella, 29, who they were happy with, and she's been a great help, so I was told. Fast forward to a month ago, I'm over their place to meet the baby, and I meet Ella for the first time. I thought she was beautiful from the second I laid eyes on her. She's smart, very outgoing. I won't lie, I probably looked like an idiot, but I couldn't take my eyes off of her. Ella and I exchanged numbers, with the understanding it was good to have them in the event of an emergency. Both parents aren't always available, so I'm the next best thing in an emergency. Anyway, we'd been texting back and forth for a couple of weeks, and I thought, screw it, and I asked her out for a drink. She said yes. Apparently, Ella told my friend and his wife that she was going on a date with me, and they're mad, saying I'll screw up their relationship with her and other stuff. I reminded them that Ella's an adult, and she's interested in me too, but they told me I need to cancel the date and not go after their nanny because they need her focused on her job and I'm a distraction. I refused again, so now our friend group is involved and divided. Some agree with me, we're adults, we can decide for ourselves. Others agree with them. I'm an a-hole and it's inappropriate. So, am I the a-hole? So we're just going to go through the compilation of collected comments and OP's replies to them all. Hey OP, you're the a-hole on two fronts. One, this is your close friend's employee. The power dynamic is weird. I mean, what happens when it's raise time? What about when you both bitch about work? Your friend said no, don't do it. 2, the age gap is too much. I like to use 20% as a rule of thumb. You're more than 20% older than her. Another popular one is half your age plus 7. She's still too young for you. Look for partners at the same life stage as you. OP's response? Well, she isn't bothered by my age, and I'm not stupid enough to pass up the opportunity to spend an evening with a gorgeous 20-something. Okay, man, well, if things go south with you and the nanny, she may quit to avoid any possible contact with you. You are not a good friend to say that because you're consenting adult. It's not your problem, even though you say that you can see where they are coming from. OP's response. I don't mean to sound incredibly self-centered, but that's a risk Ella has to figure out if she's willing to take. My friends went through a tough time finding her in the first place, but I don't see how they can expect her to just not go out socially. My brother in Christ, they are not banning her from socializing, they're just asking you to not screw up their perfect system. Now others go on to apply the math of the fact that this man could only date someone maybe 28 and a half and up for it to be, somewhat acceptable. But even then, a 28, a 41-year-old, or 43-year-old, sorry, they're two different stages of life. And honestly, the only kind of people that would go for this sort of age gap are adults that, is the kind of man who clearly aren't capable of getting a woman their own age, because all too commonly, they're incredibly immature themselves. But OP has some incredible defense. Well, I've dated all ages. Appropriately, of course. I just enjoy the company of younger women. They're more adventurous and fun to spend time with. I'm not looking for anything particularly long-term. It's just to enjoy some time with an attractive, albeit younger woman until things things reach their natural conclusion. Ugh. I know we kind of all knew where this was going, but just hearing him say it so directly that he just wants to pump and dump her as much as he can, oh man, it's still so gross. Now, he makes other mentions that he's apparently the baby's godfather, as in the parents are just that close to him, they would trust him to be a parent, and this comes back up later. Because you see, with the power of rose-colored glasses, this guy genuinely thought the comments were actually on his side. Like, he must have seen 203 and was like, yeah, this is evidence that I'm in the right. I'm going to send this to the friend, who upon seeing this post got so infuriated with it, he made his own throwaway account and just went to town. I'm the father you mentioned in this post, and I can't believe you have the stones to post this. He sent me this post to gloat. I guess at some point it was going his way. Most of what he said is true. My wife and I had a baby 6 months ago and hired a nanny. He is not my baby's godfather. We are not friends, and he did not ask Ella for her number. He took it from the baby book my wife put together in case of emergencies. The only reason he was at my house is because my wife feels sorry for him and invites him over for dinner sometimes. And for what it's worth, Ella is neither 29 nor interested. She was being polite because you told her we were best friends and she wanted to make a good impression. I've told her to block his number at every single social media I know he has and apologize profusely because I don't want her to quit. Signed, Jake, because I can do a pee-poor job of picking an alternate name too. You are the a-hole. If you come near my family again, I'll lay all your stuff out for the world to see. And oh lord, did the floodgates open with the tea there. My goodness, you're gonna need at least 5 pots to go through this entire brew. Now, apparently Jake did follow through with all this stuff. He gave Ella the night off to deal with things in her own way, offering to take care of the 6-month-old himself, responding to some comments inquiring about some of the things the OP originally said. He himself convinced that the only reason Ella agreed to go out with him was because they were close friends. With he and his wife working together to communicate with her that Jake is not at all, OP is not at all a friend, and she has no need to ever actually contact him. And the age that this 43-year-old was interested in for just a bit of fun? 24. Barely. So yeah, very weird he would send this to the father as some sort of boasting thing. This does make the father himself theorize that I think he wanted to show he could get someone like Ella if he wanted to, but I'll never really know. He's blocked everywhere I can think of, and when my wife comes home, she'll do the same. So naturally, with that scum running for the hills, we do get an update 2 days later, but this time from the father. A few people asked for an update. I did start writing one before the post he wrote was deleted. I don't know why, and I don't care. I saw screenshots of the messages from Jake, and to say I was disgusted is a massive understatement. He bragged about wealth I'm fairly certain he doesn't have, how close we all are, and how he introduced me to my wife. We were married when I met him. He also hinted at having influence over me because he's like an older brother to me, and suggested to Ella that he could convince me to give her special privileges and a raise. I assured Ella none of it was true and that we were very happy with her work. I also called Jake myself to rip him a new one. He insisted Ella was interested, that she'd lied her age to him, that they'd been flirting for weeks. I told him I'd read the messages, and Ella told me the truth. He got quiet, said he hadn't done anything wrong and that he had to go suddenly. He's been blocked everywhere. I'm also paying for Ella to change her number to make doubly sure he can't get through to her. Not the most exciting. I imagine some of you thought he'd turn up at my door again or something like in the movies. I'm signing out of this account. I was planning on deleting it, which is how I found the request for an update, but here you go. I'm glad you enjoyed my life turning into a waking nightmare for a day. Also, frick you, Jake. So there you have it. Some do want to argue that it's very convenient that the father found this post, but it was technically sent to him. But even then, I'm sure we can all argue the many moments that people have always seen stranger things occur online. Hell, just the things we find that are just like 1 out of a million opportunity chances. But either way, it's nice to know that Ella had gotten the proper protection she deserves, and hopefully this man will feel too ashamed to try and pursue her as some sort of revenge because she lied to him about actually being interested, and instead he was just, misinterpreting her being friendly. Anyway, friends, we'll end today's video there. Thank you as always for watching. Love your face, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.